Hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well let's learn English together. And hello again, everyone. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the show. And it's Tuesday, isn't it? Yes, it's Tuesday, not Friday. But never mind. We all know that Friday's coming. And besides, we've got plenty to keep us occupied until Friday gets here. So, are you all ready? Yes, well then, let's get started on today's lesson. It's time for us to have another gander at the present perfect. All right, now who remembers what we learned yesterday? I know, you're not brain-damaged baboons. You all remember, don't you? Yes, of course you do. But we're going to run over it again, just to make sure. All right, now, we all remember the idea, the concept of some tenses having more than one part, don't we? We know that we form the present continuous with the verb to be and the ing form of a verb. We know that we form the past continuous with the past simple of the verb to be and the ing form. And now we're learning about the present perfect, which we form with the verb to have and the third form of a verb, the past participle. All right, so the past participle, that's the new bit, isn't it? Yes, until yesterday, we didn't know that there was a third form, did we? Well, I did, and some of you might have suspected, but we hadn't talked about it. So, the past participle, the third form. What do we know about that? Well, one of the easiest aspects of this present perfect is that the past participle of regular verbs is the same as the past simple form. If we know the past simple form of a regular English verb, then we also know the past participle, the third form. Easy. All right, but what about irregular verbs? Well, what can I say? What can I tell you? These irregular verbs, well, they're irregular. And that means that, obviously, they're not regular. They sometimes have a pattern, but, well, it's a bit of a moot point whether that really helps or not. Obviously, if we can identify different groups, then yes, of course, that helps. But to start with, it's probably simpler for us to just learn the irregular verbs and their conjugation. Once we've learnt them, then the patterns will start to emerge, naturally anyway. So, we've got time, plenty of time to start looking for patterns. For now, it's enough for us to learn the third form, the past participle, that we need to make the present perfect. It's enough for us to learn the past participles of the most common irregular verbs we know and use. So, let's have a look at some of them now. First of all, here are some irregular verbs that we've seen before. So, just as a quick reminder, have a look at these irregular verbs. Just look at the way that these verbs are used in the past simple. All right, so, as we can see, but also as we all remember, with irregular verbs, even the past simple form is completely bananas! I mean, yes, as we know, we can see patterns. Bring, buy and catch all have the same sort of second form. The past simple forms for these verbs have the same sort of structure, don't they? Bring becomes brought in the past simple, buy becomes bought, and catch becomes caught. They even sound the same, although the spelling's not 100%, is it? But, as I said before, I don't think we should bother so much about the groups. That'll come on its own in time. Okay, so we've had a brief reminder of some irregular verbs, and we know that we can't predict what form they're going to take in the past simple. Now let's have a look at the third form for those same verbs. Let's see what happens to the past participle. Begin, began, begun. Break, broke, broken. Bring, brought, brought. Buy, bought, bought. Catch, caught, caught. Come, came, come. Do, did, done. Drink, drank, drunk. Okay, Harry, Mary. So, what have you got to say to that? Well, not a lot, I suspect. And really, there's nothing to say, is there? That's the past participle for those verbs. Like it or lump it, that's how it is. So we can see that 3 of the verbs in that list have the same past participle as the past simple form of the verb. Great! But that doesn't really get us anywhere, does it? No. We can also see that a couple of those verbs only have a single letter change when we move from the past simple form to the third form, the past participle. But again, this is really another so what situation, isn't it? I mean, knowing that drank becomes drunk and came becomes come doesn't really move us forward. We still have to learn the correct form in order to be able to use the present perfect correctly. So, well, it's far, far simpler for us to just learn and practice the past participle using the present perfect tense. That's the best way we can learn, by practicing. So, let's start now. Let's start to learn the past participle of verbs that we know and use. Then, after we've learned them, we can start to test ourselves, and that way we'll practice them more and more. And that way, of course, we'll learn them so well that they'll stick in our heads. And that, after all, is what we want, isn't it? Okay, so let's see a list of some of the verbs we know and use, and we'll add the third form, the past participle. Okay? All right then. So there are some of the verbs that we know, and you can all see what I've done, can't you? Yes, that's right. I've given you the infinitive, the base form of the verb, but I haven't provided the answers for the other 2 forms, have I? No. And do you know why? Yes, of course you know why. That would be too easy. I'm not going to spoon feed you. You lot have got brains and you know how to use them too. So what I'd like you to do is to think about the past simple forms of the verbs in the list. You know the past simple forms. We'll have a look at the past participle together after you've finished the past simple forms. So, let's see. How many of them are there? Wow, there's only 15, isn't there? Yes, so what? Well, let's say, what's an appropriate time? Well, let's say 30 seconds. Does that sound about right? You can finish that in 30 seconds, can't you? Yes, of course you can. All right then, 30 seconds, starting now! All right, how did you get on? Did you all manage to finish in time, or are there still some left? Well, it's not important. We're not going to have another 30-second countdown. Let's check them all together. And if you didn't manage to finish them all, you'll just have to try and do it faster next time. That's all. Okay, so let's see the list again. And this time, we'll fill in the past simple form together, okay? Come. Came, go, went, say, said, ask, asked, eat, ate, drink, drank, love, loved, drive, drove, live, lived, do, did, want, wanted, call, called, try, tried, confirm, confirmed, work, worked. Can anyone remember what it was that I told you? Yes, that's right. With regular verbs, the past participle is the same as the past simple form of the verb. So what does that mean? Well, yes, you're right. That means that if we can identify the regular verbs, then we automatically know not only the past simple form, but because the past participle is the same as the past simple form, we immediately know both forms, the past simple form and the past participle, the third form. Yes, you're all right, and none of you are wrong. When we want to use a regular verb in the past simple, we have to add ed to the end of the infinitive, don't we? Okay, we sometimes don't add ed. If the infinitive of the verb ends in an e, then we don't add ed, we just add d, as you all remember. So that means that if we want to use the verb to, to work in the past simple, then we add ed to the end of the infinitive and we get the past simple form worked. Simple, huh? Yes! And we know that if we want to make a past simple sentence with the verb to dance, then because the infinitive ends in an e, we don't add ed, just d, to make the past simple form of the verb. Okay, now what about verbs which end in y? Yes, if the verb ends in y, when we make the past simple form, we remove the y and add not ed but ied. So that means that we change the y to an I and then add ed. Try becomes tried, study becomes studied, and bury becomes buried. Okay, so let's have another look at that list and see which verbs are regular, shall we? All right, well, what have we got here? Well, which verbs end in ed? Number 4, number 7, number 9, number 11, number 12, number 13, number 14, and number 15. Those are all regular verbs, aren't they? I ask, I asked. You love, you loved. We live, we lived. They want, they wanted. I call, I called. We confirm, we confirmed. You work, you worked. All right. And that means that we can add the third form for these verbs too, doesn't it? Yes. We know the past simple form of these verbs, and because these verbs are regular, that means that we now also know the third form, the past participle. Okay, let's see them. All right, then, so that means that the rest of those verbs must be irregular. And that means that we can't just copy the past simple form. Nope. That means that the past participle is irregular. It's not regular. We have to learn and remember what the form is. So, let's see what the past participle form of those verbs is. Come, came, come. Go, went, gone. Say, said, said. Ask, asked, asked. Eat, ate, eaten. Drink, drank, drunk. Love, loved, loved. Drive, drove, driven. Live, lived, lived. Do, did, done. Want, wanted, wanted. Call, called, called. Try, tried, tried. Confirm, confirmed, confirmed. Work, worked, worked. Okay, so those are irregular, but some of them are very strange, aren't they? I mean, look at number 3 for a start. In that one, with the verb to say, the past participle is the same as the past simple. Odd. All right, but that's just the way it is. Strange or not, it doesn't matter to us. All we have to do is learn and remember the past participle because we need it. Yes, if we want to be able to use the present perfect, then we need to know the past participle. It's as simple as that. All right, so let's hear that list again in full. Regular and irregular verbs all mixed up in a big mixture sort of thing. All right, so those are the past simple and past participle forms of those verbs. Verbs which we know and love. Verbs which we use all of the time. And now it's time for us to leave you. But don't worry. We're going to be back on your screens in no time. And we're going to have another look at something we've seen before. And then we're going to come back to the past participle and take things to the next level. So, have another look at these verbs and see if you can remember which ones are regular and which ones are irregular. That'll make the next part of our journey into the jungle of English much simpler. Okay people, our time is up, so I'm off home for a coffee and well, it must be time for you to finish your chores or walk the dog or something like that. Don't forget to speak to the parrot. We don't want the parrot to forget his Esperanto now, do we? No, that's right, we don't. All right, I'm off, but I'll see you all tomorrow. See you later. Oh, and www.mediaclick.hu. Bye!